So a couple days ago, Le Mans Ultimate had its GT3 car setup slightly changed, and I would assume this is to make the fixed setups a little bit more approachable and accessible to the majority of drivers on Le Mans Ultimate. And I'm saying this because of the recent time model updates. It made the cars quite difficult to drive, at least on the setups that we were given, the default setups. A few days have gone by, and now we do have some new default setups, which I would hope drive a little bit nicer, more predictably than before. Now, in my last video about the tyre update, my comments were very positive, and I do still feel that way. I do think the tyres are a lot better than they were before, more believable and realistic behaving. However, since my first thoughts, I have driven a few online races and pushed the cars a bit, and I do find them to be pretty rough to drive, and particularly on that edge of grip, they snap so quickly. So now I'm going to show some driving that I did with the Lamborghini GT3 car around Spa on the new setups. Now, I did probably do most of my testing on the Lamborghini before this at Spa, so I think this would be a pretty fair comparison. We just went through Rouge and Rayon just before, which previously was very difficult to do flat out, and it still is quite hard to do it, but it might be very slightly better than before. Now here at the end of the Kemmel straight, we're going to be braking quite late, just like before, and using the inside curbs here to really try and minimise the line or shorten the line through the turns here. And the car handles them quite well, again using that inside curb. It didn't flick me out, it did push me a bit wide, but the car seemed to be okay. And this was also probably my third or fourth lap practicing, so at this point I was genuinely starting to feel that the car was a little bit more tolerant than before. Coming out of that turn right there, I don't know if you saw, but I could get some nice rotation on the throttle there, which I don't think I could do as nicely before. Again, that turn, running the inside curve a bit bumpy, but the car allowed me to do that, where I just didn't feel as comfortable doing that before. Now entering Pujon right there, I did get a bit of an entry slide there, but before, if I did that on the old setup, it would just immediately snap. So at this point I was feeling pretty positive actually about the setup. This was kind of where I was wanting the tyres to be. Don't get too excited because I will talk a bit more about things later in the video, but at this point I was feeling pretty positive in the Lamborghini. With the improved or the updated setup going through these turns, I felt a bit of that on-throttle slide, which I just felt very comfortable doing. Like I said, the car just felt a little bit more tolerant. And that turn we just came out of, Stavilo 2, on the previous default setups, you could certainly not take those flat out. You definitely needed to lift off throttle to get through there. And I still think you need a slight lift with the current setups, but they're a lot closer to flat out, as you've just seen, than before. And I think with a really good setup, you'll be able to take that turn flat out. Now I'm just going to start jumping through some noteworthy moments with my testing in the Huracan GT3. Coming out of the final turn, very nasty snap, and that was not the only time that happened. It was quite a common thing coming out that last turn, very tight on throttle, easy to snap. Going through Rouge Rayon, showing you that it can be done flat out. It was quite difficult before, it still is kind of hard, but I think a little bit better. Here's an occasion where I just carried a little bit too much speed into the turn, got a snap mid-turn, which kind of messed up my whole section here. I lost a bit of confidence. The car does still snap fairly easily, just a little bit more tolerant than before, I would say. And here's an occasion where I carried a bit too much speed into the no-name turn, got a bit of a mid-turn slide which pushed me out wide, but at least I was able to feel it coming, and that, I think it was a common theme in this car, is that I could feel the slides coming, which allowed me to react to them and catch them on time. I might have messed up the lap a bit, but I was able to keep myself facing forward. I'm going to go through a few more examples on the Lambo, and then we're going to jump to another car, and then you'll see some different opinions again. Now here was a part of a lap where I was really just throwing the car around. I think I actually cut this turn a bit, yeah, that would have been out of track limits, but I really threw it over this curb here. The car bounced up quite a lot. I got away with that somehow. So this car, the Lamborghini, seems to be a bit more tolerant than it was before, and this is just another case of attacking Pujon with a little bit of entry slide. Hit the inside curb unfortunately, which wrecked my line, but the car, it could take it. This car could take it. Now I'm saying this car because the next car I tried out was the Ferrari, and we're going to take a look at that right now. So I hopped into the Ferrari with its fixed setup, and my initial impressions were that it felt quite tight, quite pointy, and initially I thought it was quite stable, but I think it was because I wasn't really quite pushing the car yet. What you can see right now, I was riding curves and the car was quite in line, it wasn't stepping out anywhere. It honestly felt quite good. And I'll show you the next couple turns. The thing doesn't really move around that much. Right here was, I think, where I started to find where the edge might be. I bounced over that curb, it snapped kind of aggressively, not too much, but it did snap a little bit there. Into Pujon, it just felt like understeer, which was interesting. It felt stable though, but it took me a few other laps to actually find that there's a very sharp edge. After that understeer, like right there, there's a very sharp snap that this car has. And I think that was kind of the theme with the fixed setup on the Ferrari, was that it was stable, until it wasn't. And then I thought I'd have a go on a quick setup by the guys at Himo. I know these guys make setups that are capable of producing fast lap times, so I was really curious to see how it would feel on edge. So here are a couple examples. Here I'm entering a turn, and immediately, if you're not careful, the thing's just going to snap right out on you. And that was a theme pretty much through almost every turn in this car. You abuse the car, it's going to bite. Now, while you can use a very small amount of slip, particularly on entry, as you can see right there, I got a bit of an entry slide, I managed to keep it, went a bit wide of the apex. And on throttle you can, like right there, you can use a little bit of on throttle rotation. I covered this in my last video, but that window of control is so tight. There, as you saw, I touched the curb at Blanchemont, car just flicks out. Using curbs like this, it just very easily flicks out on you. And this kind of behaviour with the tyres does slightly alter my opinion on the new tyre model. While I do still think it's a very good improvement, it's just slightly too excessive. These very sudden, unpredictable snaps just shouldn't be happening. Before I talk a bit more about the tyre model, I do need to ask again the question of the video, and that is, are the new default setups better than the previous ones with the new tyre model? And to be honest, I do have to say yes. At least driving on the Lambo, the car did feel a bit more tolerant than before, and even the Ferrari, I mean, it felt stable, but it still had those nasty snaps. And of course, I haven't driven all the cars. I just don't have the time to go through all the cars, unfortunately. But from my brief impressions, the new default setups are they're a little bit more tolerant, allow for slightly more aggressive driving. That's a good thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the tyre model's improved from the recent update, because yeah, after I have driven a bit more in the new tyres, they do seem a bit excessively too on edge. They snap too much, and I don't actually know if the slip tolerance is actually too tight now, because I still think it's quite good, but it's just the way it snaps from like understeer to oversteer, or you'll have a neutral balance and you'll just snap into oversteer. I think the transition between that is just way too quick. I think I mentioned this in the last video, but I'm going to bring it up again. An AC Evo, I think, is a good example of a progressive, a nicer transition between oversteer and, well, understeer to oversteer, neutral balance to oversteer. You can feel it coming. That transition happens in a bit more of a smooth fashion where you can actually catch it a lot easier and you can control it a lot easier with aggressive driving. What we have here is a very snappy behavior in the tires, which just makes it very unpleasant to drive, and it doesn't feel quite right. So I feel the tolerance we have in slip, it's not bad. Maybe it should be very slightly more tolerant, but it's the transition between these states of grip, which I just think is too snappy, too excessive. I think that needs to be rebalanced a bit, fine-tuned. But I am confident and sure that with the feedback that everyone's providing, a lot of people in the Le Mans Ultimate community and real-life drivers, with all this feedback, we'll find even more improvements in the tyre model moving forward. But anyway, that's all I have to say for now. Thank you all for watching the video, and look out for some more videos coming soon.